with no further ado, let's get into the subject for today's live. So obviously it's entitled Industrial Logic's Engineering Practices. So I think a good way to start this conversation off would be to ask, what is the difference between different software development organizations? Are they all the same? I know a lot of people think that engineering is engineering. What are the differences? I think that people may not necessarily think of right away between different software development organizations.
Wow, that's a big question. Yeah. Mike, you want to start?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. I do a lot of consulting, a lot of traveling. I see a lot of different organizations. And I think a lot of folks think that the way software is done is pretty much the same everywhere. They don't really see, they don't think that there's much of a difference between the really high performing organizations and those that are just pretty much the pack in the middle. But what they don't understand is the fact that the folks who are really, really good are like in a completely different space. It's not like just a bell-shaped curve where some people are at the tail end. It's more like a power curve where folks who are really good are in a different space, and they're just performing in a very different way than folks who are doing it normally. You know, I sometimes talk about the the story or the case of two different companies. One where they have software basically set up on an assembly line that anything which actually gets committed is going to go to production. There's like automation all the way through for testing, et cetera. And you'd actually have to do some sort of manual intervention to stop it from going to production. And with a group like that, if that automation or that infrastructure goes down, that's the first thing that they're going and repairing. Now, contrast that to other groups where you would like them to be able to build that kind of thing, but they're so enamored with more features that they never actually spend time creating the automation or the delivery mechanism. And they actually struggle. And they would love to be able to push out more, but the thing that's actually fighting them is the fact that they don't actually have that conveyor belt that actually sends things to production. So to me, it's night and day different, and people don't realize that there can be such a big difference.
Yeah, I'd like
Mike, that reminds me of something I heard recently, that a lot of agile techniques derive a lot of what we do derives from lean manufacturing. Well, the presupposition in lean manufacturing is that you have a factory, and what you're describing with the conveyor belt is a factory. You know, and many teams are working basically without a factory; they're just piling up inventory somewhere.
Yeah, one of the very first things that we like to do is we call build a walking skeleton, right? And that walking skeleton is just that bare minimum, but we can go from push button, like we make a commit, builds, goes all the way through, and pushes out to some prod environment, right? It could be a staging environment or production with flags on it. We use a lot of flags to keep things available, accessible, or not accessible to the real client. And that's the very first thing we do is build that walking skeleton. So then we have the ability to every single time push something out into a production environment.
Wyatt, when you say bare minimum, do you mean like we just make a database table and push it out there?
Could be anything. Could be absolutely anything.